Well, a couple of months ago we poured this concrete pad or a concrete patio, and I'm going to show you how we did it, and then at the end I'm going to explain why we did it a certain way. So here we go. So today we're going to pour a big concrete pad for a patio. I'm going to show you how we get it ready, and we're going to talk about pouring around a new house. Now here's what's going on. I got my chalk line right down there. You can see the big pitch on it. And then I got my line right here. That's going to be my pitch for the water to go away from the house. I'm going to explain this. Where he's digging right now is all solid land. It's only up against the house that it's soft. So I'm going to show you what we're doing. So they have an angle iron going here to hold up the concrete here. As you can see, we're filling this all with gravel, and I put the bricks on top. Bricks are going to hold the top of the concrete up that's on top of the angle iron. We're going to fill that up solid with stone. I'm going to explain to you at the end why we use gravel in Pennsylvania. Well, we got our forms in, and now we're laying in the concrete. And going around, see, I got my 4.5, 5 inches of concrete. Now we got all our gravel in about 6 inches. Right here you can see the brick that's laying on a piece of metal that's tied into this building. But right here we have a piece of angle iron that's sticking up. I don't want the concrete to touch nothing. So I just make sure everything is covered. Because once concrete touches something, it's going to keep it from expanding. That's where you're going to get your cracks. Same thing right here. I don't want the concrete touching that. If this was California or something, it'd be a whole different story. But it's not. I don't want the concrete touching anything. So now I got my 5 or 6 inches of gravel in, and it goes deeper around the corners, and the concrete isn't touching anything. Concrete's got to float, just like if you're on railroad tracks. They sit on top of the gravel and they move. Same thing with this, because once it stops moving or it hooks to something, you're going to get your cracks.
Where do you want the concrete at, boys? I got it on the back now.
Okay, back it up on us, Mike.
You got it.
But if you want to put it at
Don't worry, I know you don't have a permit, but I can take care of it later.
Okay. I'm using my pull float. This is going to flatten down some of those spaces. Don't want to leave any ridges in there. So if you do this a little bit, you shake it, kind of flattens it out. Don't want no holes. Alright, sometimes you got a little hole in there. You gotta kind of fill it in. Take your thing. those holes in. Good. So it's a big patio. Not sinking. That's it, patio's all done. We're gonna come and cut it tomorrow. Well, this is the next day. We poured the concrete and we're gonna cut it. We're gonna make a cut mark here and over there another cut mark. This is new school way of doing things. Using a diamond blade. This is a tile blade because it cuts a little thinner. So I'm gonna show you how I did that. I laid my board up my straight edge and I'm just gonna cut it. Well, the cut marks are done. Job is done. D-O-N. Done. So now you're just going to keep it wet for a few days and it's good.
How you doing? I know you don't have a permit, but let me check your paperwork.
I got the paperwork here on this mic.
Okay, paperwork looks good. Here's
Paperwork
your
looks
permit.
good. Thank you, Honest Mike.
Have a good day.
Okay. I want to talk about that job a little bit. This is a picture of what that foundation looked like a year before we poured it. You notice they dig the foundation out, they take all the dirt out, and then later on they come and they fill it in. So if you buy a brand new house like that in Pennsylvania, they dig deep foundations and then they fill it in and then it sinks on the inside. Usually a year later they got to come in and put some more gravel or more dirt or something behind it. That's why they waited a year to pour this concrete pad. Now when you pour a concrete slab or a concrete patio, there's always that danger of it sinking a little more, and a lot of times you'll still see that. And if they do it too soon, you get critters living under there. I've seen snakes, I've seen possums, I've seen chipmunks, I've seen rats living under there. So they like to wait at least a year before they pour against it. And we would maybe have gone in there with rebar, but they left what they call angle irons for the steps, so we built on top of them. But when I pour concrete, I want my concrete to float. In Pennsylvania we use a lot of gravel. We want the concrete to float. We don't want rebar sticking into things unless it's absolutely necessary. And I'm going to give you a scenario about that. Now people ask me, Mike, why do you use so much gravel in Pennsylvania? I like to do this scenario once in a while because it's like a railroad track. They lay the tracks on gravel. Why do they do that? Because the frost don't lift it up in the winter. The water goes right through it. You never see footers, you never see rebar. They lay it on gravel. There's tons and tons and tons of freight that go over it, and these tracks float on that. It's the same scenario with the concrete. Sometimes you can't use gravel because you don't want the water going through it. You would use rock and stone dust, which around here we call modified. So that's the biggest reason I love to use gravel, and I have to explain it in this way. So I like to lay everything on gravel if it's possible. Another big question comes up is, how come you didn't use rebar in the sidewalks, or how come you didn't use wire in the sidewalks? Well, if it's just a footpath going around, you don't want to use it because rebar ain't always the best thing to use. Rebar expands when it gets wet and it busts the concrete up. I'm going to give you a perfect example now about rebars. When you put concrete and rebar together, it's only a matter of time where it starts falling apart. You can see where the rebar rotted out, and they're fixing it. They cut this all out. So the deal is, unless that sidewalk's outside where a truck is going to run over it, or school buses or whatever, I don't really like to use rebar, especially around the house. Now that patio doesn't have any rebar in it, and the owner and I talked about it. As a matter of fact, the owner was the contractor. He does concrete work. I was just helping him. And they said, well, the concrete might sink in the future, but we're not worried about it, because if it does, we're going to put pavers over it. That's another thing. In this part of the country, I put pavers on top of concrete. So everything depends on what you're doing. It's not black and white. What works here doesn't work in California, and what works in California doesn't work in Alaska, and what works in Alaska doesn't work in Florida. It's all different, and you always have to ask the local guys. So I hope you get something out of these videos. There's always a lot to talk about. There's no cracks in that concrete. In the old days, they didn't have saws like that. We would actually put everything in cut marks and go from there, but now you just get the saw and you saw it. They started doing that maybe the late 70s, early 80s. You weren't even able to buy discs like that. They were a fortune. So thanks for watching. I'm Mike Haduck. Until next video.